Infrastructure is crumbling and the problems are only getting worse. The pressure to find solutions is hot. Let's talk about why American cities have no water, no electricity, and no money to fix their infrastructure problems. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast, hosted by Chad Smeltzer.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. My name is Chad Smeltzer. Today, I'm excited to introduce Cody Nunez, who is with Sonoran Engineering and Construction. Thanks for joining me, Cody.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
Cody, you have a family history in construction and engineering, it looks like. How'd you get started?
Well, yeah, I do. I come from a family of contractors and tradesmen. Growing up, when I was young, my dad worked for Kiewit, and I actually got to see some of the cool stuff he built. He worked in Las Vegas on just a massive underground structure there, I remember. And I was just kind of amazed by that. Like, man, like you get to do this every day. He's like, yeah, this is my job, and this is where I go every Monday through Friday. So that was my experience with on that side growing up there. Between uncles and grandparents, carpentry, the lumber business, specialty contracting, glazing. So I kind of just saw it all around me growing up, and I kind of fell in love with building things.
Yeah, that's amazing family background you got going on there. And so what did you learn from your dad that you've taken into this, as a principal right now or partner in your company? What experiences has he taught you that you're taking further, I should say?
A lot, I would say. While the focus a lot of times is on the work, it's the puzzle of sorting out some of these cool projects we get to deal with, is really the human element of things. That was one of the early lessons he taught me was, treat people how you want to be treated, never burn a bridge, conduct yourself in a fair and ethical manner. Always be truthful in what you're doing, because it will come back around. We have a very small industry, and what we do build, what we leave behind, it's forever.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then you went to college at Arizona State University?
I did, yeah. So kind of coming up through, primary school and high school and stuff, I wasn't really sure which direction I wanted to go as far as civil engineering. To be honest, like I like building things, so I was kind of even tossing around trades. I was like, I'm going to go into the trades. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
That was one of the things my dad said. He's like, well, if you seem to like math and science, and you are ahead in those aspects. If you have any inclination you want to be an engineer, you should just start, jump into engineering, see how you like it.
Right.
So yeah, I did that. I graduated from Red Mountain High School in Mesa here in 2008, and went straight into the engineering school at ASU. And funny enough, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. I was just gonna, because one of my things is, engineering and being in school and not getting field experience. What I was going to ask is, when you say engineering school, like, what did you do there? Did you do anything in the field, or because you already had a family history? Obviously, you're out in the field, but most engineers don't get that opportunity to do that kind of work. They just go into school, get out of college, and then they go right to work for an engineering firm, typically. But you're a little different. So, how's an engineering school work? I'm curious.
Absolutely. So that's part of a funny part of my history there. When I started going to the engineering school, civil engineering, and I spent the first year there, I did fine. I was maintaining academic scholarship there, so I kept my grades.
Nice.
But as the year progressed, I was kind of like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be an engineer. I'm afraid like I'm going to get locked away, and that's one of my biggest fears is I'm not going to get to build things. I'm not going to get to participate in the projects. And I started looking for what I could be doing. And again, I'm like, I don't know, maybe the trades are right for me. And then I found the construction school And I transferred to School of Construction for my sophomore year, and that's where I stayed throughout. And so,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So with the construction school, they do have mandatory field internships. So that first year I was in the construction school, over the summer, I went and pursued a field internship, which was, they say, okay, you're a field engineer, which basically means you're going to do anything and everything we ask you to do, right? So that was the field aspect of it. I loved it.
Nice. So not all schools do that, right?
That I'm not sure about. I know ASU was very, progressive in that sense of just what you said, like getting the students that hands-on experience.
Yeah, I'm just curious because the struggle we have now is the labor shortage, right? And we have a bunch of engineers out there, young engineers that we could probably use starting in construction. That's one of my things I've talked about recently in the last week or two, was about, we have these engineers in school. Why not get them like a couple years out in the field or something, get them that hands-on experience? Because I think you're going to design better projects or better infrastructure if you have that field experience, because you're going to build better specs, you're going to build better designs, you're going to have that knowledge that you pick up from the field that you can bring into your designs. And I think you can make some spectacular, infrastructure if you have both. I think we limit ourselves by not doing things like you have in school. So what was some of your takeaways, after you got out of college and, that you brought, and from college into your engineering company you're working for now?
Well, the main thing was probably the appreciation for the field. And it's really funny because I've noticed this disconnect, like you mentioned, and it probably does have a lot to do with that where you start thing. But everyone kind of takes for granted what happens out there and the struggles that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. The information they get or the lack of information, a lot of times what's coming down from the engineers, either through specifications, what's coming down even from sometimes their own companies as far as direction goes, there's just a fundamental misunderstanding for what information's needed, when is the information needed, and how often. And then that kind of feedback from the field is important as far as, hey, is this working or is it not working? And every project that I'm involved in, I try to make sure that I'm not just talking to the project manager. I'm talking to the superintendent, like, hey, is this working for you or not? And sometimes I'm really surprised by the feedback, right?
Right. I would assume that stuff you probably don't want to hear sometimes, like, it just doesn't fit or it's not designed correctly. There's got to be those incidents out there.
Definitely, yeah. I have some thick skin I developed over the years, though. So, and it's makes you better, right? I mean, that's what it's about.
My friend in construction, HVAC construction, he tells me all the time in these big projects, installing, the ductile work. He's like, this design, he flips out. Like every time him and I are just having a couple beers, he's like starts laying into me about the problems with measurements and design. He's like, it just doesn't fit. And I'm like, well, I don't know. How do we fix that? He's like, I don't know either. So we're trying to work on that. It sounds like, in your world, as far as building infrastructure, and it's also in the commercial side too, where we're building these facilities, and it's the same issue consistently. Kind of pivoting topics. What do you love most about what you do?
It's kind of evolved for me over time, I guess. Early on, and still to a big degree right now, it's the puzzle aspect. Is every project is different. Your existing conditions are different. The struggles are different, and you're just balancing all these different elements and trying to solve it. It just is a big puzzle to me, is what it feels like most of the time.
Yeah.
And early on, I didn't really appreciate I guess, I don't know how to describe it, but I didn't appreciate the people as much, I guess, as far as the interaction with the people is all I mean. So now I've grown to appreciate the interactions I have with the people throughout the process a lot more. I've always tried to form these relationships over time, but I'm not I'm not a social butterfly. I still have a lot of engineer in me from that side of it. So,
hey, it happens, man. I get it. people are, we're in this digital world now where we're not humanizing things. And last night I had that experience. My wife and I, we sent an invoice and it had no personal touch to it, no emotion to it. It was like invoice. I was like, oh, what? We got to stop doing that. There's got to be a better way of talking to people, even electronically or digitally, to make it more human. And even in real life, it's the same way. It's like we got to treat people like they're here, they're helping us, they're in construction, they're getting dirty out there. We're sometimes sitting in an office designing projects and we're warm and toasty while there's guys out there freezing their butts off. So we do have to appreciate those guys. If there's something that you do day to day that you don't like, what is that thing?
I would say, there's just by nature of being in the digital world now, it just seems like we're expected to push a lot more paper. And I would say that's probably a large part of it. I mean, the amount of, a lot on the engineering side, we're dealing with specifications, and for us as a specialty contractor and design firm, like we're dealing with other people's specifications. And most of the time, like we're reading, they're the same, but we've got to go through the same motions, checking the specs, responding to the same specs that have been wrong for years now. It's just the monotony of it, and I'm really looking forward to the time where we can just have AI do some of this, educate a program to do some of these just lever pulling is what it ends up being.
You talk about specs and documents and procurement documents, things like that, the legal stuff that goes with it. I mean, it's so overwhelming. And that's why these construction specs become 1,000 pages. You're like, and no one's reading them. I mean, to be honest, like you're either going through Adobe trying to pull out some keywords, or you're trying to do, these little things to find out what's in the contract so that, if you get it as a contractor, that's one thing you look for. You're like, okay, what's the deadline on this thing? How many little keywords can I search for and pull out of this document? And it is tedious. It's tedious on both sides. It sounds like on your end too, to putting these things together. And that's one things that I've been hearing lately. And it's one thing I'm really passionate about on my side of things is like streamlining all these processes, especially in engineering too, because we spend too much time just with the paper. I mean, it's really what it comes down to. So, you're in the same boat with everybody else. It sounds like it's just that paper process every day, just sitting there when you should probably maybe be out in the field. Look at that. You could be out in the field, managing the project, looking at things, getting better at designing your projects, because right now you're kind of tied up inside. That seems to be the common trend. So what do you do? And I'm kind of backtracking with your dad. Like, what do you and your dad do now? Do you guys get together? Like, how's that work?
Yeah, my dad actually, he's a vice president of Aiken Gardner Construction here in Arizona. So yeah, he's still very involved in the industry. I actually live right across the street from my parents, so I see them often. I really enjoy that dynamic, having two little kids.
That's awesome.
And of course, just being close to my parents. We've always had a good relationship. It's even I did work with him for a time when I was at Aiken Gardner, and that was good. I think, and that just goes to how he is and how I was brought up in that same way, and my family's that whole way. Is we see the projects, each project that we're encountering is, we're trying to solve that puzzle, and we're working as a project team to do that. There's no this side of the table or that side of the table. And it's everybody against the project, the challenges of the project itself. And I think that's, if I could convey that to any of the young up and comers, it's just look at it that way. I mean, try to make positive relationships and not adversaries.
Yeah. Like you said before, it's putting the pieces of the puzzle together, the challenges that come with building a project and designing it correctly and making sure everything fits. It's like Legos. Putting together Legos. It really is. I would assume that you mess around with Legos. I did the same thing. It's like, well, let's see what we can design or build, just being creative with Legos when I was
and these Legos just cost a lot of money now. Is also
a lot of money,
Yeah.
a lot of money. Let's talk about that. With the engineering cost estimates, where they're at now with inflation and everything else going on. How are you guys handling that? I would imagine you had projects to some of your customers that, with capital projects that were 2 years in the making, maybe a year or two in the making. How did you adjust?
Very carefully. I mean, it's some of these, you're right. A lot of the capital projects, especially with the alternative delivery projects,
Yeah.
they got pushed a year. And that would happen with the blink of an eye. And depending how big that project is, like for us, if we see it as an anchor project, which most of these large scale ones are for us, it's devastating to your forecasts.
Yeah.
And all it takes is for a handful of these to get pushed throughout a market sector, and then all of a sudden you've affected the supply chain. So, and that has to do a lot with even our domestic mills and our domestic large manufacturers, because you start getting too many of these things jammed up, and then you release them all, and everyone says, "Yeah, you told me 4 weeks, you told me 8 weeks." It's like, yeah, but you released all of this stuff at the same time, and now it's not going to be the same as it was 6 months ago.
Right.
So it's always that constant juggling act, and it just comes down to that communication. We communicate a lot with our suppliers, with all of them. We communicate a lot with our contractors, with our agency partners, and just trying to figure out what's on the horizon, when's this stuff going. Even just figuring out, if they don't know, what are your vibes on this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, look, sometimes they're in business. They're trying to make money. They're not going to tell you their lead time is the way they should. They should be realistic and tell you the truth. But man, they're trying to survive with their struggles with supplies. So the lead times, I think, are, we'll get there in 6 to 8 weeks, whatever. And then it ends up being 12, 24 weeks, stuff like that really delays your end of things and struggles. I think we need a better way to manage that, as well as these specs and everything else, the supply chain issues that we have, knowing what's available, what's not, where it's coming from. Those kind of things are very important. Sounds like for you guys too, to make sure, can you get these projects done on time? It's your customers that are waiting, and your engineering firm is on the line to, complete it, execute it, and get it done within a certain time period. So those kind of things are very important. What do you think some of the biggest struggles are with the contractors and suppliers right now that you work with?
That's a good question. I would say, I think it boils down to, at the root of it all is communication. But I think even more than that, it's how we deal with, I would say, conflict or issues when they arise. And I think there's a real tendency to just lay back on these 1,000-page specs and these enormous, we call them short form POs that are 20 pages long. Sorry, that's not a short form PO. So it's already in there. Time is of the essence. And it's like, yeah, everyone appreciates that, right? But it just has to do with that communication window of like, okay, what are your true goals with this project? Because there's a lot of stuff that gets communicated that you hear, okay, well, we need this in 2 months, right? And okay, fair enough. That's a good lead time. We can deal with that, right?
Right.
And it's like, your intent is for me to go and spend the money and do this in 2 months when you're not going to use it for a year, and you're going to make me sit on the finished product. Ooh. So that's happened numerous times. And so you hear these things trickle down from agencies and from different things. And it's like, just be honest with us, right? Like, we'll be honest with you, you be honest with us, and we can all be most efficient in dealing with some of these issues that are knowns. Like when we have things totally out of our control with how things are being imported that we just need. I mean, I love to use domestic made material. I try to all the time, but the reality is when I need little couplings, you can't get them domestically unless I have them machined. And that's going to be a lead time. So I would say it's just honestly trying to communicate more is going to be the issue, and just communicate with that regard and not worrying about like, yeah, I know it says it in the contract, but let's just be real.
Yeah. There you go. Let's be real. I mean, that's where it really comes down to in construction. Communication, in my experience, has just been horrible. They literally everything's emails back and forth or a phone call, and it's so quick and just like there's nothing to it, and you're not. It really delays our projects. It does because you have all these different communication pieces going on. Emails, phone calls, things like that. Our office, their office, and all that just becomes a hot mess. And we definitely need to work on that kind of stuff. And to be honest with you, the contractors at an advantage right now, supply and demand, right? Contractors have there's limited supply now, as these projects got unleashed and things are, starting to, become more and more needed for contractors to do these projects that the engineers are putting out. So now they're like, okay, well, we have an advantage in our side. I mean, we can pick and choose what projects we want to work on. We have a labor shortage on they're both sides. Everybody does now, but they have a labor shortage, but they can only do so much. And I think there's a lot of times where they're going to pick and choose what projects they want to work on and what they don't. So you're right on with the relationships and, not burning bridges and things like that you said earlier, because you will need those guys. And they know that too. We all know that, these contractors, have the upper hand right now. And it's not a bad thing. It's just the position we're in because, we just don't have enough labor to do all the work. So how do you think we could better like the procurement process too? That's another issue that I've experienced. And what's your thoughts on those?
I think with the procurement process, that we have to do a better job about putting together. I was going to say bid packages, but that would just mean kind of more paperwork. But I mean, just, more or less scoping things out and understanding from an early level, at the engineer and at the agency level, of when it's time to bring in a supplier, when it's time to bring in a specialty contractor in order to fine tune these specs, these plans. And because that's going to allow you to procure better.
Yeah.
A lot of times, by the time we get a hold of specs and plans and like, okay, we're gonna bid this and we're gonna select the most qualified, highest value, however you want to look at it, supplier, subcontractor, or GC for that matter. By the time they get a hold of those, you've already gone down a path that you might not be able to go back. And that could be selecting a pipe material. It could be dealing with the bedding and backfill specs. Could be anything like this. But a lot of these people, like us being very specialized, like we have a lot of input that can save you a ton of money, a ton of time. It can help you procure things faster if you only involve us at an early stage. And that's what we see more often than not. And we will save you more money. And the issue is a lot of agencies say, well, I just want a competitive low bid. It's like, yeah, that's fine. In the short run, you're not getting a competitive low bid if you go to bid with screwed up plans and specs. You're getting the most efficient person at building a hunk of junk than you are building an actual great piece of art, right? Or a great project.
100%, man. Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to continue there, but I didn't mean to interrupt you. But you're spot on, because it literally is the specs that we write. And I've seen some terrible specs, like crossed out lines because they reuse specs. And I'm like, okay, well, you didn't even take it out. Like you just got so lazy that you didn't even remove it from the outline of what the specs are. They just put a line through it. I'm like, what? You're sending that out for a bid? Like, that makes no sense. And,
Right. Yeah, I kind of slowed myself down. That's something I could get on a rant about, at the tavern, for example. But I will say, though, that suppliers, subcontractors, like if an engineer has a question or an agency has a question, like we love it when you send us something like, hey, does this make sense? Or can you do a sanity check on this? Like, sure. Yeah. And for anyone who's worked with me, kind of running joke is I'm pretty good at talking myself out of a project. Right. Like, what do you think of all this way we did this here? It's like, that's great, but you could do it this way for a lot easier. And unfortunately now I guess I don't have a scope to bid here, but at the end of the day, I'm a taxpayer, and that's the majority of our clients are agencies. So, I mean, save money for everyone, I guess. Right.
I laugh because I've done the same thing. I'm like sitting in these meetings and talking too much, obviously. And all of a sudden I'm like, that you should just hire that person. It could be a competitor. I don't know. I just talk myself out of the sale, whatever's going to make and I look at things like you are, right? It's like helping the client. It's not about
Mhm.
just what we do, or, we're the best and I offered you the only thing you should be using, right? There's
Mhm.
other tools in the tool belt. There's other options out there. And if it's going to make their life easier, talk about it.
Mhm.
Hey, this is a technology that I think is great. You should use it. And I think they respect you. Your customers are going to respect you more, and they're going to keep coming back to you more because you're being honest and upfront and not trying to close the deal, so to speak, and
Mhm.
maybe not have the best solution for them. So, you're right on, Cody. What are the so you have to have a passion for something, right? What is your passion in construction? Like, is it is it water? Is it sewer? Is it just facilities? Is it building? What is it?
I've been thinking about that a lot over the past like 6 months or so. And a matter of fact, I always end up in that mode after we go through kind of our in Arizona our shutdown times, which is that's when we're doing most of our work is basically October through March,
Okay.
and it just gets to be bananas, right? And I would say my passion is pressure piping, and then because of my love for those puzzles and the collaboration and all that, it's got to be the existing systems.
Yeah.
I really enjoy looking at the existing system and then figuring out, okay, how are we going to fix this problem? How are we going to rehabilitate this? And then on top of that, I kind of think, well, am I just an adrenaline junkie? Because a lot of these things, most of them, you're very tight time frames. You're very high risk of, if not putting a huge swath of people out of water, you're at the very side, you're, risking career suicide, right? Making a bad
100%.
decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the stakes are high, and I think that's for me what makes it fun. But we'll
So,
see.
so
We'll see how long that candle burns, right?
yeah, I mean, pressure pipe is, man, I tell you, you talk about the water systems in America, how bad they are.
Mhm.
It's the more and more I talk to people, the public works guys, the, guys in the field operators, in public works, and you hear the stories of those water main breaks and stuff, everything that's happening with water main, the leaks, the meters that are off reading, we can't get accurate readings on our
Mhm.
meters right now. They're off. I read something, 20-25%, and maybe even worse that we know
Mhm.
of. So, those kind of things, I'm slowly becoming more passionate about myself. I'm like, man,
Mhm.
this is messed up. Like, we have no
Mhm.
water in Jackson, Mississippi. They're talking about like shutting the water. And that's the other thing. They're like, so we have these plans, right? And I want to get your perspective on this one too. Is you have a system, let's use Jackson, Mississippi, for example, right? $60 million budget, sewer water every year, basically what it come down to. And let's say over a decade, it's $600 million.
Mhm.
And let's say, I think there's 110,000 people there. The system's probably 500 miles, maybe 600, 800 miles, something like that. Could be off, but $63 million a year, you could start replacing a lot of pipe. Over the next 10 years, you could replace up to a certain amount of pipe. And I think the calculations I came up with was like, you know, if we had started doing things 10 years ago by replacing the water mains, we would have been already halfway through, if not more, 3/4 of the way through the system, replacing the whole thing by using the money appropriately. And how do you think we can fix those kind of struggles with the budgets, mismanagement, maybe? Like, what can we do better?
We've seen a lot of this, and it's probably the same all over the country. But we tend to fall into this reactionary mode, right? And just as people, we do that. But I mean, you think our agency counterparts who are making these decisions get incredibly reactionary. So you'll have a water main break. It's on the news, right? You call a contractor out to fix it, which is incredibly expensive. I mean, and
Yeah.
there's to hurt matters worse is that gets pushed back onto the contractors that like, yeah, this is, they screwed us over because they charged so much. It's like, well, no one's sitting there waiting for work. I mean,
Right.
nobody's sitting there waiting at 2 a.m. on a Sunday to come out and fix the water main, but they do. And like that does cost money. You've got to pay everything costs more. So you're already operating at a disadvantage there, but you know what? You handled the news story. So you patch the issue and you can move on, but you spent 10 times more than you would have using a method like you talk about. So that's one part of it. And part of is to try to switch your focus from being reactionary to proactive. The proactive approach would be to think, okay, if I've got a $60 million a year budget or whatever it is, and I know I've got known issues that I keep breaking these water lines. Water lines don't usually just break. Like usually there's stuff that happens before then, like leaks. So how much non-revenue water are you pushing out of that system?
Yeah.
And how do you capture more of that? So that's one way to look at it, is maybe your budget could grow to do something great with your system and start capturing more revenue water.
100%. I mean, how many leaks do you think? I asked Chris McDonald, but I think you know Chris. How many leaks you think there are per 100 miles? How many do you think there is per 100 miles of water main?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I did see your post, by the way. I mean, yeah, I think
okay.
Chris said 16,
So no cheating.
right?
You can't use the same number, but I was just curious. I didn't know if you saw that or not.
Yeah, Chris said 16. I mean, I could see hundreds. I mean, I would guess, and I would say it would depend on the pipe material or pipe size, even. Like in a distribution line, a small like system with 6-inch to say 18-inch diameter pipe. Especially if you've got other utilities in the way that could capture those leaks, like sewer lines that you might have, issues with separation. The water's going to find a path and jump its way in an irrigation line, sewer line, storm drain, something like that. So you don't see it.
Yeah.
The number could be thousands, I would say.
I tell you what, if I'm not going to put my math out there, but it could be completely off. So some nights I'm sitting there doing math. I'm like, okay, that's stop.
The scary part is you don't know. Your math could be right on.
Crazy. It's crazy the amount of water leaks we have in this country and the amount of waste of clean water that is going on. And wow, it's definitely a need for more pressure pipe inspections, repairs, things like that. There's no doubt about that. No doubt. So I know we're getting close to time here, but last kind of question is, how do you think cities could improve managing their utilities, water and sewer? What are some of the things you can, advice wise?
I'd like to see, and this is part of a situation like I'm not great at all, like organizing people and putting together, committees of some sort. But I think in certain situations, like even ad hoc committees, board members, boards like that, and just getting industry input from people who do this on a day-to-day basis. You're going to have people in the cities who specialize in moving water, and that's what they do. And that's great. Most of the time, people like me, I don't move water. I just make sure the water gets to where it's going. Yeah. That's what my job is. So they should look at that and bring in contractors, bring in engineers, try to build these groups of people they can talk to and just bounce ideas off. Everybody wins in that case.
Everybody's got to come to the table. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I think government leaders get inundated with too many opinions and too many people. And, look, it's a lot of money out there. So you will be misled. There's no doubt. There's either the misleading of a solution that's probably not the best one, or a plan that's probably not the best one. But, you as a leader, you have to keep an open mind and you have to get it from different sources, but eventually you have to get everyone to the table. If there's some arguing going on, let them argue it out. And then, but someone's got to research it and validate it. And we have enough information AI wise now to make more critical calculations out there. So start doing the research and things like that to make infrastructure, smarter. Is really what it comes down to. Make smarter decisions.
I would say us as an industry, we need to do better about communicating with our agency contacts and not just try to call them when we want to try to sell something. Just call and talk to them, figure out what their issues are, build relationships. Let them know, hey, if you have a problem, maybe I can't help you with it, but I probably know someone who can.
There you go. That's it right there. So Cody, appreciate your time here on the hot seat. It was awesome. I wish we had some more time. Probably do another one here down the road this year, some point in time. How can people get a hold of you, Cody?
Well, you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn, of course. My email is cody@sonoransalescompany.com. And
awesome.
Yeah,
well,
let me know how I can help.
Yeah, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on here. Appreciate it. And look forward to talking to you the next time.
For sure, Chad. Thanks.
Thanks, Cody.
Thank you for listening to the Infrastructure Hot Seat podcast. We hope that this show brought you some insight on relevant topics within the infrastructure world. Please join us every 2 weeks on Tuesday for the next episode. If you're interested in being a guest on this podcast, please set up a 15-minute interview with your host at calendly.com/Chad Smeltzer.